Yeah, there was kind of a telepathy thing going on in my head. Maybe it was hearing the voices of the characters. But I remember the Bulldog going into the break room and getting some Chinese food. They had ordered from this Chinese place that wasn't very far. They kind of catered to them sometimes. They would get like late night runs and they'd bring in these like noodle dishes. He was our foreman. This ex-Marine. The rumor was he was a Marine. I don't know what he was, but kind of looked like a Southern guy. Kind of dressed. They love country up there. Country music. Regardless, I remember kind of, I was watching him eat and I was having my sandwich. I always made a sandwich. And in my mind, I heard him say, "I don't know how he does it." Referring to Stephen King. That's what I heard. Call me nutty. I don't believe or disbelieve in telepathy. But it was almost as if he was saying that to me, as he had his meal. We didn't know how he did it. Nobody knows how Stephen King does it. I have some theories. He's a walker. He walks quite a bit. I think what he does is he eats light and he goes on this long walk and his creative juices start flowing like really big time. And he gets these series of ideas on his long walk. And then when he gets back, he writes a few of them down. And then he riffs on them until the evening. I've heard him say in interviews that he does not know how he writes his books. He doesn't really do a schematic. He doesn't do an outline. I'm about to do an outline for the screenplay here pretty soon. We're going to give you some note cards. Squirrel right there. A screenplay you kind of have to, because you only have so much you can say in a certain amount of time. You turn in a screenplay that's 400 pages long, that's going to have to be a series, I don't want to do that with this little tiger of a book and this little lion of a screenplay. I want to get the meat off of it and present that. And I'm going to try to get a feature. We'll worry about series and all that kind of stuff later. But supposedly he just goes at it. Stephen King he says, "I don't know what the F, I don't know how I do it, I just do it, is how he does it." That's why I want his autograph. The Woody Guthrie of novelist. Sometimes these interviews and these little essays, and Stephen King was quoted to be watching The Last of Us, which is a post-apocalyptic, zombie, whatever, and he was watching it supposedly, and there is a long shot of supposed Boston, outside of Boston, and they didn't really film it there, probably because of time and money, and they just kind of pulled it off, and it's like, that's not an outside shot of Boston, that's not a long shot of Boston, or whatever, a wide shot or whatever of Boston, like in the background. Filmmakers are like, "We're only trying to survive, Stephen King." He's making complaints. The Last of Us. Who cares? I haven't seen The Last of Us. I heard it's the best thing out right now, so I haven't seen it, and I'm sure it's great. I didn't even really get that much into The Walking Dead. I did read Cell, though. Stephen King's Cell. I did read that. I read it from cover to the end of it. I don't retain Stephen King stuff very well. Probably the book that I can kind of contain is Misery, because that's the one I intensely read in high school, and the one that I like the most. I really like that one. I like a lot of stuff. The Stand is very, very complex. It's very hard to even remember any of the characters in that for me. There's a crow and all that other stuff, The Dark Half. The Dark Half is great. I can recall Stark, the Stark character in The Dark Half. Stand By Me. Well, The Body, I remember some of them. If I lay down really still and I don't talk for a long time, I can hear their names. I know River Phoenix, was in it. That character right there. Like I said, I think we remember things for a certain reason. You know, it would be weird if I went off and listed every single character name ever written. I don't know if the story would really be that worthy in that case. Sometimes it's what you forget that's more important than what you remember. But I do remember that he wrote quite a bit of stuff, and that he found a way to make a living off doing it, and started doing it as a child, you know, selling these books in school and stuff. He did. He rewrote horror stories and sold them in school, him and his brothers. It's a true story. The fifth one, number 5. There was a moment in the mill. There was a guy who was working there, wanted to be a police officer, a young kid. That's what he was studying to be. Hard worker. We were dusting all the lights off, you know, the ceilings. Jer was there, the religious Jer, not the bad Jer. There were 2 Jeremys. Jer was there. There was a lot of dust and stuff in the air, and the young kid, he started kind of going into kind of almost like an asthma fit. I had left the room to turn in some of the light bulbs, because we were replacing some of the light bulbs, the fluorescent light bulbs. We were up kind of high up the air with these ladders, doing some revamp stuff. Well, he started having trouble breathing. So Jer started praying over him. Pretty sure it's in the book. And I walked over and I was like, what's the problem? And he was down on the ground. And Jer was there praying. I guess, you know, speaking in tongues and praying. All of a sudden the guy looked up and perfectly fine. Nothing happened. So, you okay? You ready to get back to work? It's like, yeah. It's a very strange moment. But I guess he just had a moment where it felt like he couldn't breathe for a moment. It did get really dusty in that room in that moment. As long as you got enough to sleep and enough water, enough food, the work was decent. It wasn't too difficult, not a lot of hard lifting. Some of the repack stuff took a lot of concentration. Of course, you want a good eyesight, and you want to be able to conceal your hearing. You want to be able to cover your hearing. The hardest part of it is enduring the loud noise. There is some standing around and waiting on the machines. Not a whole lot of heavy lifting. Very rarely do you ever lift over 30 or 40 pounds, but you do sometimes. You do have to lift some heavy stuff, but not a whole lot. Now, the backbreaking work is if you're working the bottom of the belt, catching the tongue depressors or the furniture pieces or whatever it is they're cutting. They use these like weave. I call them furniture pieces, but it's really for like weaving baskets and stuff like that. It looks like these little legs that could be like furniture pieces. They're about this long or so. I'm trying to show you like maybe like that long or so. And it weaves into like a basket. It makes like a basket, which is kind of like furniture. You could sell it like Pier 1 or whatever. It can be difficult on the back because you're constantly moving the wood, and then you're packing it. It's a lot of packing and sorting, and you have to be able to do it or it'll fall right on the floor and be swept up to be done again, or probably to be used as fuel in the fire. So a lot of weighing. You have to weigh the dowels. Once they're in the boxes, they have to be weighed. They have to be perfectly weighed so that they don't lose money or pack too much in the boxes. It's all about getting the boxes packed correctly and balanced onto the weighing machine, which it'll go green or red. If it's red, then it means it weighs too much. If it's green, then it's just right. It can also go under, so it doesn't weigh enough. Red would mean it's either too light or too heavy, and green means it's this right weight, and then they sell it by the weight. I think it's 500,000 pieces a day or something, even probably more. They do it for the whole nation, but they also do it for Texas too, because they sold a lot of the corn dog sticks to the state fair. And the state fair, you take one bite of the corn dog and then you just throw away the stick. Or, you eat the corn dog, and that corn dog stick has been in the hands of a mill worker that placed it in the box. I'll never eat a corn dog again. I'm joking, I eat corn dogs all the time. Don't you ever talk to me about a corn dog again. I'm sitting there at a corn dog eating contest. No, corn dogs are fine. I love corn dogs. There's work to be done. Oh. We work on our B's. Big bag of burgers. B's and G's. Big bag of burgers. Big bag of burgers. Big bag of burgers. Brick got the big bag of burgers. Big got the big bag of burgers. Yes, Breck did. Breck Big got the big bag of burgers and picked a booger. Breck Big got the big bag of burgers and picked a burger as picking a booger. Breck Big bought a big bag of burgers, picking a booger. There we go. Breck Big bought a big bag of burgers and picked a booger. You got to do these things every morning. Breck Big bought a big bag of burgers and picked a booger. Yes, Breck did. Now, let me tell you something. Like Dave Grohl, Matthew Perry, big time authors. They are. They're big time authors. They're writers. Big time. Matthew Perry got a New York Times bestseller. That's a huge deal for a writer. That's a big time writer. They are important writers in our society. Dave Grohl, a drummer, big time writer. Okay? So actors do it. Robert Shaw wrote a lot of stuff. They can do it. You can write a book. It takes time. It takes time and energy. About to pass. They may not be Bukowski. About passing this right here. No, they won't be Charles Bukowski. You got a guy that starts his little monologue off. I'd have to say pussy, cat. But he would say it otherwise. Yeah, Charles Bukowski, he didn't even make it until he was like retired as a known writer. But all he did was write. That's all he wanted to accomplish. It was one specific thing. He wanted to create this book, or these books, a series of books, and he did it, and he moved on, and he's known as one of our greatest writers, other than like Hemingway and all the others. Oh, we'll talk about Bukowski later. Usually, in most cases, Cole, you want to include the trip. More importantly, when you're doing the vlog about Escape from Maine screenplay, include it at the beginning and write down Escape from Maine script, and they'll be able to see it, William Burroughs style, on the screen. Everything is scripted. I was watching David Lynch and Charlie Rose talk about a series of his movies, and it came to attention why I think films and the filmmaker is important. If we were a fish and we were in the ocean swimming, the fish would see certain things in certain colors, and it would remind the fish on where to go, so the fish, doesn't get eaten by, like, let's say, a whale or a shark. It's the same with us as people. When we see certain things, something goes off in our mind. Lynch talks a lot about the mind's eye. So there's probably some kind of current going through him, mysterious current, and he finds these images, and I think it's otherworldly that's maybe coming to him in a way. And then he puts it onto the screen, and it reminds us, or it shows us where to go, possibly in life. They talk about Blue Velvet being a film that happens behind the curtain or behind the closed door, and we go inside this thing and we see these obsessions and these crazy things in this danger. And we hear, he's also good with sound, because we can hear that otherworldly, or we can hear that message, and we can see and hear this message. So he is more, I think, of an artist and filmmaker and a painter, because they're coming from something that we can't see until it's shown to us. So he talks about the actors rehearsing, he talks about the script, and he's trying to reveal something that we can't see. So it takes time. I think David Foster Wallace wanted to be on set so that he could pick up as a writer of words, of crafting words, because David Foster Wallace presented a book that we can't understand completely, or that we can understand, but it takes time to understand it. So when you have these writers and you have these filmmakers and painters presenting stuff that we can't see, but yet we see them. What I mean by we can't see is that it's not something that we're familiar with seeing every day. But once we see it, a warning goes off, a reminder, or something goes off, and it directs us in a different way. That's why we wait to see his work. Now, there's other filmmakers, and they're nonchalant, and they capture things that we see every day, and that's wonderful. I have nothing wrong with it. But when you're doing something of mystery, or something that comes from mystery, it seems to get your attention for a little bit longer.
Stupid windows. Why do they have to have so many stupid windows? How are you?
They do have windows. Now we go to Dallas to drive Linda's Pontiac in circles. All the way from California.
It worked fine on highway. Yes, on way, now on highway, whatever. Oh, I don't want to delete the number. Alright, you got a pen?
Yeah, there should be one in there. One on the side.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I'm not allowed to do that.
Do me a favor on that one.
Yeah, I know.
Boy, he's a zippity. As if something is a-hole-ish in nature. are meant for commercial.
So it looks different than if you...
Yeah, the remainder are commercial. Real nice.
What's that smell?
Maybe it's Reese's.